now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's headed to the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron, alongside David Neese. Corey and Ida will be joining us shortly. David, how you feeling on this beautiful Tuesday evening?
Doing great. Short work week. Work tomorrow, then I'm off for 4 days. Get to watch football, get to eat food, get to not cook, which is great. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
That's always a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. I can't wait for the food that's coming in the next couple of days. I don't look forward to the mess to clean up, but
I've never really learned to cook all that great because I was told by my grandfather when I was young, never be good at something you don't want to do. So I just became just not good at it. So everyone else does it around me. Nobody ever asked me to do it.
That is the best advice I've ever heard. Somebody should have told Kevin Patullo to not do it.
Ouch. Well, get right into it. Nice transition.
We get right into it. Corey will join us shortly, but yes, have to jump into a 21-0 lead in which I feel like all of Philadelphia, all of the nation, every single Eagles fan was celebrating because we feel like this was finally happening. They were breaking out. The offense arrived. They fell flat in the second half, and they lost 24-21. What do you make of this collapse before we dive into the offense and defense?
Like the first half, everything was looking great. Play calling was good. I mean, they were creative. They were moving the ball well. And just to get into it, like a big issue that's not talked about enough is them getting the play call in time. Mm-hmm. And when things are going well, like they were in the first half, the play calls coming in good. They're getting to the line of scrimmage a little earlier. And it just opens so much more on the offense. And when they get tight, which they do every game because it's like they just take their foot off the gas. And I do think it's by design. I don't know who's controlling that. I would assume, that comes from Sirianni. I mean, he, ultimately he has the autonomy to control all decisions. And I do think that they get a little conservative. And once that happens, they're scrambling with play calls. So their play calls coming in late. They're getting to the line of scrimmage late, which causes more problems than just being ready and false starts and stuff like that. But when they see the defense is prepared for their call and they're getting up there with 4 or 5 seconds, they can't call into a different play. They have to run the play that they know is about to fail. And that's a big issue. And they got to the line of scrimmage almost 5 seconds later in the second half than they did in the first half. And that's just extremely troublesome because that's something that, that's coaching, that's practice. That's something that should be, have already been taken care of weeks and weeks ago. And the fact this is week 12 and they're still having those same issues is a big deal, coupled with, 14 penalties for 96 yards as well. It's just ugly. And that speaks to coaching.
How do you coaching? It's such a sensitive word nowadays, coaching. Corey, how are you? Oh, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
I am as good as I can be with a 7-month-old, 55-pound pit bull puppy. So
I do not envy you whatsoever.
Apologize for the tardiness. We have a dog trainer come to our house, learning some new commands and all that stuff. And went a little late, but glad to be here, guys.
We're glad to have you here. So we kind of dove right into it. I think the question I asked David before I get into my spiel about it is, what do you, before we dive into the offense and defense, what do you make of the collapse from the first half to the second half? The offense starting off hot, us thinking that this team was finally breaking out, to them falling flat on their faces in the wrong time.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to me. I think it's frustrating if you're a fan to watch it because you thought that those first 3 drives, finally, they figured it out. A.J. Brown was getting open. Devontae Smith was going downfield, hauling in a deep pass. The running game wasn't there, but it didn't need to be because they were still able to get the yardage they needed. So I think my overall thoughts is just it's frustrating, and it's almost head scratching, I should say, because it just doesn't make sense. Like, you cannot figure out how this team looks so good for 3 drives, and then they go pretty much 40 plus minutes without not even sniffing the red zone. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me. So I don't know where they go from here. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit, but yeah, that was a shock. I thought that was going to be a laugher on Sunday.
Here's my thing, and feel free to correct me at any point, right? For the most part, this is the same the same personnel on offense that we've had the past 4 years, maybe going on 5, right? We've had Devontae, we've had AJ, we've had Dallas, we've had Jalen. We've had the same offensive line. This year is a little bit, different because of the injuries. Saquon, year 2, we had him last year, right? And I understand that we don't have Kellen Moore, but my thing is, like, I think I've gotten to the point where it's like, I'm tired of the excuses. I'm tired of, the whole, hey, they have a new coordinator, they're getting used to it. No, the guy's been in the building since Nick Sirianni was hired. I'm tired of hearing that it's a new offense. No, it's not a new offense. It's the same scheme that was brought when Nick Sirianni was hired. This team, and I think David hit the nail on the head, is they're not prepared for anything, it seems like, this season. Like, there seems to be a lack of motivation, a lack of will, a lack of preparation. And at the end of the day, if both of you work for me in my business and the business is not running the way it should be, I can't look at you guys and say this is your fault. No, the business is a reflection of me, and this team is a reflection of Nick Sirianni at this point. How much blame, or how much blame? How much of a leash should Nick Sirianni have at this very moment? I understand he won the Super Bowl. I understand he's had 2 Super Bowl trips, but let's not forget Doug Peterson also had a Super Bowl, and his leash was very, very tight, and they cut him loose right away, as well as Carson Wentz. I don't think they'll do that with Jalen Hurts, but it seems to be the common denominator over the last couple of years that they've struggled, or the slow start as well. Even last year's slow start seems to be Nick. Is his leash long, or is Jeffrey Lurie actually looking at him under a microscope?
I mean, I would say he's being looked at under a microscope. Coaching can't make up for every injury or inconsistency, but when technique, timing, and recognition all start slipping, you look at the man in charge. And a lot of the finger pointing goes to the offensive coordinator. And like you mentioned, almost everything's the same. And so is the playbook. And people will always say, why can't he do this? It's the cadence, it's the sequencing and all of that. That's really not what the issue is here. They just can't run the ball. Just period, point blank, they cannot run the football. And there's very little you're going to do to set up other plays when teams do not respect that. And you can blame whoever you want to blame on that, injuries or whatever, but it's the offensive philosophy. And the only difference between 2024 and 2025 is that Kellen Moore was able to lean into the running game, and it masked all of the deficiencies that were there in 2023. It was a blip. I mean, his offense is the same. The head coach sets the philosophical framework of the offense, and it's been the same for 4 years. What the system is, how the team wants to win games, such as trying to get a big lead and then, taking your foot off the gas. The core principles, tempos, formation, motion frequency, run, pass blocking, spacing concepts. He doesn't call the plays, but make no mistake about it, that playbook is his. This offense is his, and he is ultimately the problem. And Jeffrey Lurie is much smarter than me. He's got $10 billion. He knows this a hell of a lot more than I do. And he's also surrounded himself with a lot of bright football minds. So, yeah, he bought himself some time, but in my opinion, if they didn't sign Saquon Barkley last year, he would have already not been the head coach this year.
I agree. I think the Super Bowl saved Nick Sirianni a little bit. And you mentioned 2023. I just looked it up while you were talking. Philly averaged 124 yards on the ground in 2023. That was 9th best in the league, but only about 15 more yards than what they're averaging right now. So it's not like they were way better off in 2023 than what they are now. So I agree with what David said. I think that Nick Sirianni is the vibes guy, right? To kind of steal the term from the Phillies with Garrett Stubbs. He's the CEO. He doesn't call plays. He's in charge of making sure that everything is cohesive. He makes the right calls on fourth down. He's aggressive when he needs to be. And I think he's taken a step back with that aggressiveness. I hated what they did going into half against Dallas on Sunday. You have 17 seconds left and 2 timeouts. And then his explanation this week was, well, Dallas has a really good kicker from long range, and we didn't want to give them a chance. There's no way that I should say, that they could run 3 to 4 plays to get the 30 yards necessary and give Dallas time to do anything with before that half. Why not try and make a 55-yard field goal with Jake Elliott? Well, why not just, even if he misses, so what? The clock hits 0, you go into halftime, you're still up by the same score. So, and that's been a reoccurring theme with the Eagles lately, going into the half, kind of just limping in, happy that they got the lead, and now Vic Fangio and the defense is going to take care of it. Well, guess what? That did not happen on Sunday because the defense got lit up by George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, and they gave up nearly 500 yards of offense, and the pass rush wasn't there. So you can't rely on the defense because the pass rush has been hit or miss. Now, yes, it has been a lot better over the last 3 weeks, minus that game on Sunday. They only got to Dak Prescott for 1 sack. I think they totaled 6 total QB hits, but they didn't really come until the second half anyway. They allowed Dak Prescott to play his game, and once again, he played it very well. He historically does play well against the Eagles, but yeah, I think that for Nick Sirianni, if this starts to teeter like 2023 in terms of the decline, where it just doesn't seem right, even if they're winning, I wouldn't be surprised if they look at it and say, hey, maybe we need to shift focus. We have to shift gears a little bit. So I'm not saying he's on the chopping block. I'm not really saying his seat is hot, but I do agree. I think that there's a little bit more of a microscope on Nick Sirianni here throughout the rest of the season.
Because it's one of those things where it's kind of like with your kid, right? When you're raising a child, you're telling the child, hey, like don't paint the wall, right? And then they go on a couple of weeks not doing it, and I know where they start painting the wall all over again. It seems like that's kind of like where Sirianni is, where it's kind of like you haven't really learned much from your mistakes of the past. Last year, you had a big Band-Aid in what Saquon Barkley was, because you mentioned before that Nick Sirianni's the vibes guy, right? He's the guy that's supposed to keep this team, glued together, everything, nothing leaking out. But it's been nothing but drama all season. Same drama from last year. And it's the same thing. The offense speaking out, saying like things are not going right on the offense, and they're not happy with it. And I know Jeffrey Lurie got the right players in place that can handle this kind of heat, and I'm happy about that. But at this point, with everything leaking out, the frustrations about Jalen, AJ Brown not happy, Devontae Smith not happy, AJ Brown not really throwing on Saquon under the bus, but to the media throwing Saquon under the bus. Just so much crap leaking out. What is Nick Sirianni actually doing right now? Is my ultimate question. Like, your house is on fire, and how are you trying your best to fix it?
He does everything behind closed doors, for one. He never admits there's a problem to anybody. Anybody who asks him any question, he's never going to do that. He'll take the hits, just like he did in Seattle a couple years ago when the offense went rogue, and he's like, no, we knew what they were going to call in that game. They didn't, just like they didn't know what the 4th and goal shot or whatever it was with him and AJ a couple weeks ago. He takes the bullet for everybody, and that's the biggest asset that he brings to the team, because they love him for that. And that's why he's there. But I don't think he would survive a 6-game losing streak like he did in 2023 and 2025. I think it'd be over pretty quickly.
And I agree, and David nailed it on the head with, I think, why guys love playing for Nick and why it's not the end of the world. It's because they respect the hell out of him for doing exactly what David mentioned. He will fall on the sword in front of the media, on TV, on radio, before he throws any of his players under the bus. Now, some people love that. Some fans might be like, no, I want a hard nose, call them out. They're not playing the way they're supposed to be. My argument is you don't think that Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, the offensive line, you don't think that they know they're not playing the way they're supposed to be. You don't think Saquon Barkley knows he's struggling this year. So I think it's very telling when Sirianni stood up for Xavier Gipson as to why he feel that punt on the 2-yard line inexplicably. And Nick Sirianni today was lauded for it from a lot of the media, because that's the type of guy Nick Sirianni is. That's what he brings to this locker room. And now, again, some people might not like the rah-rah CEO coach, but he's been pretty damn good. He's led this team to 2 Super Bowls, and won 1. So you got to take it with a grain of salt where, yes, things are falling apart. Things aren't looking that great. Kind of has a little bit of a 2023 vibe to it. But at the end of the day, if they go out and beat Chicago on Friday pretty handily, I think a lot of people are going to kind of forget this Dallas game and move on. Now, they won't if it doesn't look right. If they have to scrape by the Chicago team, the defense looks bad, and they're going to be missing Drew Makuba, obviously. Good news, Reed Blankenship looks like he'll be able to play. But if this offense still doesn't look any better, then I think that's just going to continuously be the topic this season. And again, a lot of it starts with the running game and the offensive line. I know David has pounded that to no end. And to go on a little bit of a tangent here, I just kind of laugh where it's like, oh, well, Saquon Barkley's lost a step. I mean, if you look at the stats, he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage almost every single carry. The guy's amazing, yes, but he can't make all these people miss. And historically,
can you repeat that one more time?
Historically, guys who run for 2,000 yards have a very down year the following year. Our friend Jeff Kerr, formerly of CBS, he put out a great tweet lining it up of, hey, these are the 2,000-yard rushers. This is what they did the season following. Now, Barkley is on pace to have one of the worst seasons of that collective group, but it also has to do with how poor the offensive line is doing. So there's a lot going on. Nick Sirianni, as you guys mentioned, he can only do so much. He can't go out there and make sure that these guys don't have an illegal hand to the face to negate a big play. And one of his biggest sayings is, we have to master the things that don't require talent. Well, they completely did not do that on Sunday with 14 penalties for 96 yards and 2 backbreakers called by the offensive line. So I think that there's a lot of issues. I know people are saying, hey, stop blaming Kevin Patullo. It's more on Nick Sirianni. I also agree with that, but I'm not saying we got to fire Nick Sirianni just yet.
And there you have it. Corey says that we should fire Nick Sirianni.
Flip it.
So let's dive into the offense, right? The offensive line, and I don't know if it definitely correct me if I'm wrong with this, but it feels like the weakness of the offensive line this season. Obviously, yes, it's injuries, but it seems to be the interior as well, like the Landon, Cam, and at times Tyler Singh when it comes to the run, because the defensive players are crashing right through that to get to Saquon. Jordan Mailata doesn't look like Jordan Mailata at this point, like off the field. He doesn't look happy at all, which is very odd because he's usually lucky go jolly. Anytime you speak to him. But what do you guys see besides injuries that as what this offensive line is lacking this year?
I mean, one reason I think Mailata has struggled is because he's compensating for Dickerson, who's been hurt right beside him for much of the season. I mean, he probably shouldn't have started the year off. The first game that I went to in the locker room after their win, about 3 people told me that they didn't even expect Landon to be playing that game. Like, they didn't think he would be playing, and that was against the Rams. When was that? 9/21? That was week 3 or 4. They didn't even think he should be playing then. So that tells you how, hindered he was. And that leaves, Mailata a lot more vulnerable. Mailata's always benefited from playing beside him. He's not been, the guy on the island like Lane was. So that's caused a lot of it. Steen is really good in pass protection, or at least better, a lot better than run blocking, in my opinion. Cam has been hurt as well. He had off-season, I think it was neck surgery. And his asset is getting downfield, getting to the second level, blowing up a linebacker 50 pounds smaller than him. Because he's a small offensive, center. He's what, 295, 300. They try to list him at 305, but he's a little smaller than that. And secondly, just none of the plays are working, so nobody is respecting anything. I mean, the run game's not working, and they showed that if you stop the run and make Jalen beat you, sometimes he can do it, sometimes he can't. And every team's willing to gamble on that. Like in the Super Bowl, which is the moment everybody will point to, Hurts was able to do that. But almost every single team is playing the same defensive scheme as the Chiefs did to slow down the run. And it has been extremely effective. And Saquon, again, I know the whole 2,000-yard thing and coming back and tired and all of the 350 carries, but I don't think that's what the problem is here. That guy still looks like he's got a lot of juice and moves, in my opinion. And they're just not opening any holes. And I think maybe one of the biggest losses of the offseason was Becton. When your bread and butter is the run game and you swap your right guard for a guy who was great against the run and struggled against the pass for a guy who's better against the pass and maybe struggles, versus the run blocking, you kind of opened yourself up to this kind of problem. And I think you're seeing it on the field. And again, the injuries just rotating everybody around. You saw the game with Toth. He not good when he had to play center after not practicing all summer, after not practicing all week. You give them time, they'll be good. But they're just not having time to do that this season because it's just been a myriad of problems up and down the line.
Yeah, I agree with everything David said there. The offensive line is just banged up, and you need consistency with that group. No matter if you've got a bunch of all pros there, you still need to have that consistency. You still need to have those guys pull their own weight. As David mentioned, Mailata kind of overcompensating, for some of the lack of production on that side of the line. Cam Jurgens, I don't think has ever been healthy this year. I salute him for grinding it out and dealing with whatever he's dealing with on a daily basis. And he's sure as hell not going to be getting to 100% in week 13 of the season. So you're going to have to just deal with what you got, and they have to figure out how to scheme it up a little bit better. Is it be more aggressive with the passing game? I think the running game, I don't know if the running game is going to get there. I mean, we've seen the team is what the team is. I know Jalen Hurts said that we have to dial it in and find our identity tonight. And I agree, because what is the identity of this 2025 Philadelphia Eagles team? Last season, we knew it was the run. Everybody knew it was going to run the ball. The defense knew it. The sidelines knew it. 50,000 fans knew it, and they did it with success. But what do they do this season successfully? And there's just not anything that you can kind of hang your hat on and say, yes, that's what we're going to do. Now, we've seen flashes of it, and I think that in order to open up this run game, I think the Eagles still need to throw in a couple of more designed runs from Jalen Hurts. But I understand why they're hesitant, because they don't want him to get hurt. He's been banged up in each of the last couple of seasons. He goes down at this juncture of the season, and now you're getting
the city burns.
Yeah, you're getting into some dicey situations here. But I think that this offensive line, you just got to power through it. So I don't think there's one right answer, as David mentioned, with the injuries, the inconsistent play. I think the penalties can help, though. Stop making penalties. The two backbreakers in that game on Sunday was the illegal formation on Matt Pryor, who checked in for the first time in that game and negated a great 20-some yard catch by Dallas Goedert that would have gotten the Eagles into Dallas territory. And the other one was Fred Johnson, who's filling in for Lane Johnson, illegal hand to the face that took away a 16-yard catch to Devontae Smith that would have gotten them, I believe, just outside of the 30-yard line. I mean, those are two huge plays where even if they stall, you're looking at a pretty easy field goal attempt for Jake Elliott. That's at least 6 more points that wins you this game. So I think they just got to try and clean it up. And like Nick said, and like Jordan Mailata said, they take great pride in not being called for penalties and being paying attention to detail and mastering the things that don't take talent. They just haven't done that all year.
And one more thing about the running game, a lot of fans have now turned to let's give Tank a much larger share of the carries because he's, his yard per carry is 7.2. For a little bit of context on that, when he comes in these games and he is running on 1st and 20, they're not expecting you to run. When he runs on 2nd and 13 and breaks off 17 yards, it's because he was not facing a heavy box. His 29-yard run came against a 2nd and 26. Nobody was expecting to run there. He's not facing the same heavy boxes on a consistent basis. If you look at the overall totals, you'd say, oh, well, he's faced, percentage-wise really close, but not when it matters. Almost all of his big gains have come because, they were in a down and distance that was truly unfavorable for a run, and they just did it anyway because they were going to punt or they were being conservative. They didn't want to, they were being risk averse. They didn't want to risk an interception. And he's breaking off those long runs. But if you give him the ball more, sure, he's got a little juice. He runs a little bit differently. But that isn't what the problem is, because too many people are trying to point it at Saquon Barkley. And before that turns into an A.J. Brown situation, some context needs to kind of be brought to that.
And you make a good point real quick, Brian, just to add to it. In the first meeting against the Cowboys, per NFL Next Gen Stats here, Barkley faced a stacked box with 8 or more defenders on a career-high 67% of his carries, finishing for 33 yards on 12 touches against Dallas in the season opener. So that started the trend, and it has continued throughout the season.
Yeah, and I feel like it's very lazy analysis if you're saying that, Barkley's the issue, kind of like we were saying AJ's the issue. But one thing to take, good away from the Dallas game, right? We saw the pass game open up in a way that we haven't seen in at all, I feel like, this season. AJ Brown was heavily involved, had over 100 yards. Devontae Smith had that ridiculous catch. Dallas Goedert had that catch that wasn't, negated because of the penalty. But it seems like this team is very reluctant and not thinking about it, but their identity should start relying on the pass game to open up the run game. It being that these guys, a lot of these guys are banged up, being that Steam is probably better in the passing game than he is as a run block. And they should rely on that. I mean, they have the talent to do so, and they should honestly pivot to quick passing, slants, anything that could get the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands quicker, because he's standing back there for so long. Nobody's getting open. And when you look at the all 22, there's a cornerback standing right next to every single wide receiver because nobody's moving around and they're just running their vertical routes.
Yeah, if they don't do that, they're never going to get the running game going this year. It's going to have to be built off the passing game. I mean, one big example that stood out against the Cowboys is they're at basically around midfield and it's 3rd and 2. Last year, that's 2 tush pushes and also a first down. This year, they go back for a pass, take a sack, punt. That's the way the season is in a nutshell. And Jalen had completed 15 of 16 passes for 154 yards between the numbers. He was eating them up. And then Dallas adjusts, and the Eagles can't or don't. I don't know which. They become conservative, but it's just just so much of those kinds of things that are going into it, like with the running game. And as soon as it was 3rd and 2, me and a guy were texting back and forth. Here it comes, 2 tush pushes. Nope. They're just not doing that. And it makes no sense. And I don't believe it's because Detroit stopped it a couple times that they got gun shy of it. It's just conservative football when it shouldn't be. And then it's risk taking, like on 3rd and 2 when it shouldn't be. It's like all the buttons that were pushed perfectly last year are just failing miserably this season.
I'm glad that you brought it up. I wish I kept the counter to start the season of how many tush pushes they've done so far, but it has to be way less than what they did a year ago.
Apparently, the Buffalo Bills have ran more tush pushes than them to this point.
And this is pure speculation, just for the sake of conversation. Do you think that they're purposely not using it to prove to the league, oh, well, we don't need this gimmick play to be successful? Because I was beside myself watching Jalen Hurts drop back on that 3rd and 2. I'm right with David. I was watching the game with my wife. I said, run it with Barkley. 2 tush pushes. Why are you throwing the ball? and then he took a 13-yard sack, and he had a punt. They had a punt. It made absolutely no sense to me why they didn't run the ball with Barkley at least once. If he falls forward, you're at least getting a yard almost. As long as the O-line does its job and gets some push up front, you can get at least 1 yard and then do the tush push. So I just have no idea why they're not using it as frequently.
The only thing that makes sense to me is Jalen doesn't want to do it. He's not running as much either. That's
true.
It's the only sensible answer, in my opinion.
And we've heard Jason Kelce said he hated the play. Like, it is not a fun play. And you couldn't pay me enough money in the world to be at the bottom of that pile. I don't care. You could not. But
I'll get claustrophobic very quick with all those big guys.
Right. You know what I mean? So, like, okay, that's fine. But then why don't you try some wrinkles off that?
Well, they've done that before where they, they'll pass it back to Saquon. Saquon will break it off like 20 yards, which, again, like, I hate the fact, and I'll go back to this play. When Brian Johnson was the offensive coordinator, they had a beautiful screen pass where, like, it was so weird that DeAndre Swift went around the offensive line, and then the Jordan Mailata, Dickerson, and Kelce went in front of Swift and then started blocking, and it was like almost like 20-yard gain. They have these plays there, but like David said, they're so conservative and they're so risk averse this season. That seems like they don't know what the hell they want to do, and they're scared to do anything.
And a lot of that's because of the run. Because without being able to run, they're relying on the pass, and that leaves very little leeway for mistakes. And the offense has been a tale of two halves all year because of that. They're trying to build a lead, and then they just want to rely on the defense. Last year was a perfect storm of risky Sirianni, a running game, and a defense that nobody really knew was going to be as good as it was. So they weren't able to rest on their laurels, so to speak, and wait for the defense to save them. This season, they're relying on it too much, and they played that game too many times.
My viewpoint of it is that it almost seems like they turtle up and they just hide behind their lead and say, okay, as long as we don't turn the ball over and play keep away, the clock eventually will hit 0. Our defense will make the stops and we'll win, and we don't care what it looks like. What happened to the dagger? Like, what happened to these plays where it's like, no, we're going to dictate how we run our offense. Yeah, we might not be able to run it, but we have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Saquon Barkley, all viable options in the passing game that makes it extremely tough for the defense, and it just isn't happening. And I think that, and you guys mentioned, they've gotten so concerned about turning the football over, and I get it. You see the crazy stat. They're like 40-2 or whatever. Was it 40-2?
Yeah.
Wow, I just pulled that out of my butt. But I knew it was 40 and something, but I might have seen your tweet, David. I think you put something out on it. But you know what I mean? Like, to me, yes, 40-2, that's an amazing stat. You'll take that 9.5 out of 10 times. But you got to put teams away. You did not put Dallas away, not only in that game, but they believe that they can hang around. And I'm not going to say they can win the division, but
they only needed one more score. That's all they needed. One more touchdown. We wouldn't be having a conversation.
One more stop, either way. But their outlook is, let's wait for the stop. Let's wait for Fangio to get the one stop. And it's maddening to watch.
They have no cojones this year. That's the issue. They don't have it. Like, it's the weirdest thing in the world. They just don't have that edge. And I don't know if it's because of the whole HBO Hard Knocks thing going on as well. Like, they have a lot going on over there, but still, like, they think the Giants have more cojones than them. The Giants almost took out the Lions, and they were putting up a lot more points than the Eagles did against the Lions.
And it still could end the year that they're right. They could still win a Super Bowl playing this way. I mean, we're all talking about it like it's horrible. They're 8-3, and if they beat the Bears, they're right back to the number 1 seed in the NFC. I mean, they might keep pointing at the scoreboard, 40-2, 41-2, 42-2, and just keep playing this way, and it might lead them to another Super Bowl. But I think Dallas is a good example of what teams are starting to do. They're realizing if you weather the storm, the Philly's going to back off, and then you just come right back and fight. And a lot of teams are starting to play it that way.
it's a scary sight, a very scary sight. Offensively, they have a lot to do and very little time to do so, especially with the Rams. Seeming to be the favorite for the 1 seed.
I mean, they looked amazing. They looked really good on Sunday. That Stafford Devontae Adams connection.
If Philly gets the 1 seed, you're not telling me the Rams are coming in here and beating the Eagles.
I'm not saying it, but what I'm saying is they are the only team in the NFC that has given the Eagles trouble. And statistically speaking, it is so hard to beat a team multiple times. That's why a lot of these division games in the regular season, it's a split because they're so familiar with each other.
But it can't be done. They did it last year to the Commanders. They won 2 out of 3 against the Commanders last year.
They did, but the Commanders were playing with house money, and I think they thought they were.
And didn't we beat the Rams twice last year?
Yeah. Yes, you did. But in LA they beat the brakes off them.
Okay.
But I think a lot of people forget how close they were to losing that game in the snow game in the playoffs.
They were.
I mean, if Jalen Carter does not get to Matt Stafford, he had a wide open receiver or tight end over the middle of the field, and he was either going to be stopped at the 1 yard line or bang his way into the end zone with little to no time left. Now, I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles couldn't march down the field and respond.
But at that point, they would have sealed it.
Exactly. And look what it took for the Eagles to beat the Rams at home earlier this year. Now, I know they're 2 different teams. You got Jalen Phillips. The defense seems to be much better, although they struggled against one of the better offenses in Dallas. I'm just saying I think anybody who thinks, oh, well, the Rams can't come into South Philly come playoff time and beat them, I think that would be a little unwise, in my opinion, because the way the Rams are
calling me unwise now?
You are a wise man. I don't know. Your cojones comment made me a little unwise for the betterment of our coverage moving forward, but
Listen, well, so I know Dave, he has a dip off at 7:55, right?
I got a couple minutes. Keep going.
Okay. Listen, I feel like there's nothing wrong with saying that a good team needs to go. A good team needs to find that dog in them. That's what needs to happen.
That's my new watchdog.
He's speaking facts right now. A good team needs to find that dog in them, and right now this team just doesn't have that dog in them. But they have the guys that can bring it out. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, talent's got them this far, and like I just said, it could take them all the way to the Super Bowl again, despite all of the problems, all of the misery, all of the anger, all of the bad offensive plays.
The most pissed off team to ever win the Super Bowl because they won the Super Bowl.
But I do agree with Corey. The Rams are the one team that would worry me too. I know everybody will point to Sean McVay's 1-5 against the Eagles. I understand that, but they are prepared very well. They could cause a lot of problems. They were a field goal block away from winning the game in Philly this year, and they were a Jalen Carter sack away from winning the game in the divisional championship. Yeah, Eagles won both games by a play, but there is probably not another team in the league that would love to get the Eagles back and have a chance to show it that they can play with them in the postseason.
Go ahead.
The last 4 games for the Eagles and Rams. The Eagles won 33-26, 28-22, 37-20 when they beat them well in LA, 23-14. So, I mean, they're not blowaway games by any stretch of the imagination. And this Rams team is looking really good. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that the Eagles are definitely going to lose to the Rams if they come to South Philly. I'm simply saying this has all the makings with how many times they've played, how hungry the Rams are to finally knock off Philadelphia, that I would not be surprised if they were to upset the Eagles come playoff time.
Yeah, they're the biggest threat. I definitely agree.
Well, the issue at hand is that we have to get to the playoffs and actually succeed to face the Rams at this rate.
We played the Niners in the first round if the season ended today.
I hate the Niners. I would love to beat the brakes off of them.
That would be a really good, favorable matchup for Philly, actually.
Yes, it definitely would. So before we lose you, David, defensively, it was an anomaly kind of style game against the best offense in the league. They lost Adoree Jackson. They lost Andrew Makuba. They lost Reed Blankenship. And I feel like after they lost Reed, everything just kind of collapsed. What's your assessment of how the defense looked and how, if we should be concerned or not going forward?
It looked terrible. It was bend, don't break defense that kept bending, breaking, and then collapsing. So yeah, it did not look good in the second half. Cowboys had 211 yards in the second half, I believe, or 211 at halftime and 473 for the game, I think is what it was. The defense has bailed out the offense all season, so it's unfair to expect them to play an A game every single week, in my opinion. But one late stop would have made the difference and closed out, a game. And Dallas went on a 24-0 run. That's really unheard of. But offense contributed nothing, including time of possession. What was their longest time of possession in the second half? I believe Corey said it was like 4 minutes.
It was under 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean
they didn't have a drive. I think it was like 4:13 or something like that.
Yeah, and you can blame it on the injuries. Losing a Jomo, Adore, Blankenship, Makuba, it doesn't help. And Dallas wasted no time in targeting those weak links, but they were having success before all of those people got hurt as well. It was looking troublesome. I think when it was 21-0 and then 21-7, and then at 21-14, I think everybody started realizing, oh my gosh, they're going to win the game. I think you could feel it. And I think the Eagles felt it. The stadium felt it. So I don't think that the defense is like the offense and where everybody isn't accountable. I would have loved to have heard more of Fangio's answers, but McMullen had to tell somebody to shut up, so we couldn't hear the whole thing. But I would have loved to have heard the rest of the answers. But I don't think it's a big concern. Losing Makuba is bad. That's probably the worst of this. At corner, I don't know what they'll do. They tried putting Cooper out there. He played outside a lot more than anybody really paid attention to. I don't know that they'll do that going forward. I mean, the one that he really got burned on to me was probably offensive pass interference, even though he got
that was
for a
so
DPI.
so obvious OPI.
Yeah, but I think that the safety situation is probably the larger concern because you're probably going to have to go with Reed and Sidney, I guess. So, which is a lot better than Sidney and Andre Sam, which is what it looked like 24 hours ago. But yeah, I don't have very many concerns. And to end it on a good note, the Birds need to re-sign Nakobe Dean. It's as simple as that, man. He's been a difference maker. He's looked great. He brings confidence. Everybody follows his lead. That's an example of a really good linebacker. I know there are not many linebackers in the league who you lock up after selecting a linebacker in the first round. But I think Nakobe Dean is probably that guy. But yeah, I don't really have many concerns with the defense. If Fangio was Sean Desai, yeah, I would be pretty scared. But I don't think we have those types of concerns in 2025.
You're giving PTSD with that name right there.
Yeah,
Oh.
He was the Timu version. Is that how you say that word? Timu?
Timu, yeah. No, I agree there with David. I think the defense will be okay, especially with the news that Reed Blankenship is expected to play on Friday. I think that is a huge boost to this defense because, as David mentioned, they either were elevating Andre Sam more than likely, or possibly
Adore Jackson, a full participant in practice as well. Just a heads up.
Adore Jackson was?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, so that was great because I was going to say either that or there was rumors that Michael Carter might go back and play safety, and then if Jackson was out, you're looking at Keely Ringo or Jacorian Bennett. So I think that this secondary will be all right, but don't sleep on this Bears offense. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this team overall because they're the Bears. They've been basement dwellers in the NFC North for how long, but they come into this game on Friday with the 8th highest scoring offense in the league, averaging 26.3 points per game under first-year head coach Ben Johnson, who
another PTSD moment.
Yeah,
what's going on with you guys?
Ben Johnson, after he helped the Lions become a prolific offense, and now it's wearing off with Chicago. So it's not. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park, but I also don't think it's going to be as daunting as that Dallas defense because Cowboys, you want to admit it or not, they have a Super Bowl caliber offense. Their defense just isn't there, but that offense is scary. So I think the Eagles will be all right, even with the short week and some of the injuries.
Yeah, agreed. I think the Eagles are winning too. And if the Bears do win and the Eagles offense doesn't move the ball, Patullo probably is not going to be the OC next time we have a conversation.
You really should. I mean, I don't mean to hold you, but like that's interesting because people were saying, "Oh, well, they got to change them. They got to change them," and then they bring up the 2023 situation on defense. I mean, I don't know if that happens again, but
it would be a demotion, in my opinion. They're not going to just get rid of him, but Sirianni would have to start taking over the play calling, or Scott Loeffler in some sort of collaboration. I mean, something would have to happen if they keep falling down like this.
Give me Loeffler as our OC for the rest of the season, because David has sold me on this guy being the guy.
He had 13 years of calling plays. I mean, it has to mean something. It has to be better than never calling them at any level.
Yeah, I mean, I would be kind of surprised if Kevin Patullo is the OC next year. Either way, however the season,
there's no way he's the OC next year unless they win two Super Bowls in the season.
They win the Super Bowl. I don't know if he's the OC. Like, it's clear that he just doesn't have it yet. And Nick Foltz kind of mentioned it on his podcast. I was going to say that. He said, "Hey, KP probably an awesome guy. The guys love him. They love being around him. He just can't call plays, and it takes an art to call plays. It is. Now, I've never done it. You guys, I don't think have ever done it. So I can't say.
Does Madden count?
Yeah, ask Madden. Hit square. Yeah.
No, I don't ask Madden. I do my own stuff. Okay.
You tell it, but I just think that it's something where you give this guy the keys to a souped up sports car, and he's stalling out. Like it's a manual muscle car, and he doesn't know how to drive it. And that's kind of how it's been, where he gets it going down on the highway for a little bit, and then forgets to shift it into the gear. And then it stalls out, and that's what we've seen.
And it's because it's a collaboration with Nick Sirianni, who can't call plays. I mean, Kevin's been right by his side all of these years. So where would he have learned how to do it well? Not from Nick. I mean, Nick had to give it away to Shane. I mean, so I think that's, again, goes all the way up to the head coach. It's a philosophical problem that they have throughout the organization. And it's a problem that you'll have every single time you go to a Super Bowl. Whether you win it or not, the OC will get a head coaching job, and you're going to be in this carousel again because Nick can't call plays.
Hey, you guys remember that movie, Dude, Where's My Car?
Yes.
You guys remember that moment when they found out that they each had the same tattoo? And they were like, "Oh, what's your tattoo say, dude? What's your tattoo say, dude?" I feel like that's Nick and Kevin's like conversation when they talk about the offense at this rate.
I like Brandon's reference that came up on the screen. Driving a Ferrari like a Pinto.
Yeah.
The Pinto, man. Yeah, it's
that Ferrari is going to be
real quick so David could continue his run of shows on social media.
Yeah.
I was segueing into that, but yeah. That Ferrari is going to be at the link on Friday night.
When David mentioned Black Friday mid-season, I was like, "Yo, we got to talk about this."
That Ferrari will be parked at the link on Friday night, and no, Corey will not be driving it, although he's covering the game. Eagles are hosting the Bears on Black Friday. It's all black. They want all the fans to wear black in the stadium. They're bringing back the all black attire, which means they should be balling out.
Inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, dude, I wish I was there for that. Malcolm Jenkins is one of my favorite Eagles of all time. What's it called? Cool thing is that I'm sorry, David. So weird little tidbit. I found out that Malcolm Jenkins was actually going to leave Philadelphia before it was even announced, just because where I worked, his parents walked in, and I told them I was an Eagles fan, and they were saying bad things about what was going on. But yes, what are your predictions? Eagles, Bears, Caleb Williams, Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Swift returning, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson returning.
Yeah, I have the Eagles winning 24-16. I think they're going to feed A.J. Brown again. I think he gets a touchdown again. I think he gets over 100 yards again. And I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson probably gets a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct.
Can you bet that? You bet on everything almost.
Hey, do you know I can't bet FanDuel or DraftKings in Florida?
Yeah,
That's
they're
crazy.
sticklers with it. Yeah, they won't.
I like how you say, yeah, like you should have told me that, but you never told me that kind of thing. I get it.
If I told you that, were you not going to move to Florida?
No, I'm still gonna move.
I agree with David. I think it's going to be a bit of a lower scoring game. I still don't see this Eagles team scoring 30 points as much as I'd like to see them. I'm going to say it's going to be a 24-17 score, pretty close to what David said. I think the defense will be all right. I think they'll confuse Caleb Williams a little bit. And I agree. I think what we saw early in that first quarter with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, there was something there. They lined A.J. up in the slot a good amount on those 3 drives. Let's see it more. Let's see it consistently on Friday. And I will be there, as Brian mentioned. So looking forward to all the fanfare prior and during the game.
I'm going 27-21. Philly. I think the 21 is garbage time touchdown. But I think they walked into the link with a little bit of pride. That's one thing I feel like, you can never take away from this team is that they're very prideful. And the fact that you have A.J. Brown back on the same page where he's like, there's guys in here that want to make sure we get this right, so we're going to get it right kind of approach, I think speaks volumes as to where they are right now. A.J. Brown does celebrate a touchdown with Jalen Hurts, just to put that out there. It's out there in video somewhere. But I do think it's going to be the A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts game. I do think, they're going to find some type of rhythm with the passing game. I don't want to say the running game is a lost hope, but right now they got to get going somehow, some way, and the passing game is their main escape. So I'm going 27-21 Philly. We all have the Eagles winning this one, and that means the Eagles will be 9-3 going into the week after that. But first and foremost, I want to say I hope you both have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too, man.
David had a great quote before you jumped in. That his grandfather gave him as an advice, and I feel like I need to live by this motto now. What was it again? Don't do anything.
Yeah, don't ever be good at something you don't want to do in life. So if you don't like yard work, don't learn how to do that very well.
Don't be good at it.
Screw it all up. If you don't want to cook, don't learn it. Just stay away.
Smart man.
Yeah,
Very smart. I needed that when I was a kid. But I hope you both enjoy.
I'm not good at stacking the dishwasher. I've conquered that one.
Yeah, I'm not good
at
vacuuming.
to that.
I think I'm good. My wife absolutely just redoes everything I do. So.
Oh, you sound like my wife. I redo every time. Every time it doesn't. There's the art to it, man. Listen, it's like Nick Foles said: if you ain't got it, you ain't got it. So stop loading the dishwasher, Corey.
Oh, okay? I put my plates on the counter and go back on the couch.
But I hope you both have a great holiday. Everybody in the chat, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. If you guys have a long weekend, enjoy that. David, I know you have a long weekend. Enjoy that.
Thanks,
and then we'll see you guys next Tuesday to recap the Birds win or loss and preview the next game. Until then, I'm Brian Cameron alongside David Neese, Corey Nido, and we're flipping the birds.
Flip.